ಭೀತಿ ತೊರೆಯುವ ನಾವು ಪರೀಕ್ಷೆ ಬರೆಯುವ ಪರೀಕ್ಷಾವಾಣಿಯ ನಾವು ನೋಡಿ ಕಲಿಯುವ
ಖಾಲಿ ಜಾಗ ಭರ್ತಿ ಮಾಡಿ ಹೊಂದಿಸಿ ಬರೆದು ಲೆಕ್ಕ ಮಾಡಿ
ಚಿತ್ರ ಬರೆದು ಭಾಗವ ಹೆಸರಿಸಿ ಎಲ್ಲ ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆಗೂ ಉತ್ತರಿಸಿ
ಪಾಸು ಫೇಲು ಗೆಲುವು ಸೋಲು ಜೀವನ ಎಲ್ಲಕ್ಕಿಂತ ಮಿಗಿಲು
ಅಂಕಗಳೆಂದರೆ ಮೇಲಿನ ತೊಗಟೆ ವಿದ್ಯೆ ಅದರ ಒಳಗಿನ ತಿರುಳು ಭೀತಿ ತೊರೆಯುವ ನಾವು ಪರೀಕ್ಷೆ ಬರೆಯುವ ಪರೀಕ್ಷಾವಾಣಿಯ ನಾವು ನೋಡಿ ಕಲಿಯುವ ಪರೀಕ್ಷಾವಾಣಿಯ ನಾವು ನೋಡಿ ಕಲಿಯುವ ಪರೀಕ್ಷಾವಾಣಿಯ ನಾವು ನೋಡಿ ಕಲಿಯುವ
ಪರೀಕ್ಷಾವಾಣಿ.
Hello children, hope you are in the good state of health and preparing well for your board examinations. I am Praveen S. I have been working as a maths teacher in government schools. Currently, I am working as a block resource person in BRC office Kolar. I welcome every one of you to this revision and refresher course session on mathematics on behalf of the government and also the DD Chandana channel. Dear children, today I will be taking you on a journey in the mathematics subject on the chapter number 15, which is surface area and volumes. Okay, from the examination point of view, this is a very important chapter just because the most crucial 4 marks or 5 marks question would necessarily appear from this category. Particularly, the area related to circles chapter and this particular chapter together constitute 10 marks. It can be 4 plus 6 or it can be 3 plus 7 as the case may be. But as I told you, this is a very important chapter from the 5 marks point of view. Therefore, we need to have a thorough examination of this chapter and get well prepared for the 5 marks and particularly 4 marks questions. It doesn't mean that 1 or 2 marks questions will never come from this chapter, but the 5 marks question is a very important aspect as far as this chapter is concerned. Right? Now, let us try to have a tour on this chapter. Whatever you have studied in the classes, there were merely some solids like a cylinder, cone, sphere, hemisphere and the frustum. These are the 5 important solids that you have studied in this 10th standard, and of course the cylinder, sphere, hemisphere and the cone and the formulas related to them have already been studied by you in the 9th standard also, right? Now let us try to recall the structure and the important formulae connected with the solids. Now let us try to understand what is this cylinder and what are all the examples that we counteract in our daily life which resemble the cylindrical shape. Okay, and these are the 2 diagrams that you can see on the display. Number 1, it's a solid cylinder. The second one is the hollow cylinder with radius marked as R and height marked as H. When coming to understand the cylinders in a particular way, now you can just list down some of the few examples where we use the cylinder as an example, like utensils and also a drum, a plastic drum or a beating drum, music beating drum, or a wheel of a road roller and the wooden log. These are some of the examples for cylinder, you can also list down many more examples, right. So, this is about the introduction of the cylinder. Now, let us try to catch up with the formulae that are connected with the cylinder or the cylindrical surfaces, right. Now, you can imagine a cylinder or a cut down cylinder as we have displayed here. A cylinder when cut, it becomes a rectangle and two circles up and down. So, with this scheme we can actually find the formulae connected with the cylinder. The very first formulae we can contract is the curved surface area or the lateral surface area. The curved surface area or lateral surface area LSA is 2 pi r h. Then the total surface area is curved surface area plus the area of these two circles above and this below. Okay. When you add them up and when you simplify and put it in the simple form, you get TSA is equal to 2 pi r into r plus h. Then the other aspect of this cylinder that need to be studied in a clear manner is the volume of the cylinder. The volume of the cylinder is V is equal to pi r square h. If you have played the carom, you can just imagine the piled up of all the pawns of a carom board as we play in the pauper game as a big cylinder, and every pawn acting it as a circle. If there are two circles one above the other, it constitute 2 pi r square. If there are 3, then it is 3 pi r square, and ultimately if there are h circles as such, it becomes h pi r square or pi r square h as we have displayed here, right. So, these are the three formulae connected with the cylinder. It is very important to make a judicious decision which formula is to be used and where, alright. So, when we take up the problems actually, we will consider which formula is to be used. Now, let us try to understand the different aspects with regards to cone. When I say a cone, it should be a right circular cone. What do you mean by a right circular cone? As you can see here, the height and the radius, they have the inclination 90 degree with each other, right. So, the angle between the height and the base should be 90, then only we call that particular cone as a right circular cone. And the slant height, which we call it as L. These are the three attributes of the cone. Now, let us try to understand cone in a better way. So, how can we understand this in a better way? Only by using examples like that too we counteract with everyday life. Particularly students who enjoy or the children who enjoy birthday, every member who is attending the birthday party will be given a cap, and that cap essentially will be of the cone type. That is a very simple example and a very monitoring example. The other one is again concerned with children. Every child likes to eat an ice cream. The cone, the ice cream cone is an example for a cone. And again concerned with children, if you make the children to go out, you probably find them playing on a heap of sand, right. The heap of sand always resemble a cone, right. So, the next important aspect that we need to understand in the cone is how to draw the cone schematically. This diagram, what you can see here, you can observe this as a schematic diagram and the top portion covered with the circle. The curved surface area of a cone is given as pi r L, where L denotes the slant height, and the total surface area, of course, with this curved portion and addition of circular portion will give you pi r square plus pi r L or in simple way you can write it as pi r into r plus L. And when we compare a cone and a cylinder with equal attributes, like the height is same and the radius of the base are same, and when we compare them, we definitely end up with a conclusion that 3 cones will make 1 cylinder, which eventually gives us the formula of the cone as 1/3 of the volume of the cylinder, which is nothing but pi r square h divided by 3. So, you need to remember few formulae by connecting with their attributes. The next solid is the sphere. Sphere has only one attribute, which is r. An example for a sphere is globe or a ball with which the children love to play, and a fruit like an orange, right? So, what are all the formulae that are connected with this sphere? Since it has only one attribute, every formula should have only r. Now, let us try to understand the total surface area of the sphere, which is nothing but 4 pi r square. The total surface area is 4 pi r square, and observe that there is no curved surface area or lateral surface area here, which means to say that the curved surface area, the lateral surface area and the total surface area, all the three are same as far as the sphere is concerned, and the volume of the sphere is given by 4 by 3 pi r cube. Okay. Dear children, note one point here, that is, when you are given a problem connected with sphere, there is only r connected with the formula. Okay. There won't be h and there won't be L either. And the hemisphere, which is nothing but the exact half portion of a sphere, and the examples of this are a part of a cap or a hat and the kadai. Now, when it comes to the formulae connected with the hemisphere, again there are 3 issues here. Number 1, the curved surface area or the lateral surface area, which is equal to 2 pi r square, and for this curved surface area, when you add up one sphere, when you add up one circle, you get 3 pi r square, and ultimately, since the hemisphere is the exact half of this sphere, we can find the volume of the hemisphere is to be half of the volume of the sphere, which turns out to be 2 by 3 pi r cube. Okay. Now, in the 10th standard, particularly you have studied about the frustum of a cone. When a plane parallel to the base of a cone cuts the cone, there will be 2 parts formed. One is a smaller cone, and the other part that we obtain, we call it as the frustum of the cone, which can be understood with this image. See here, there is here the first one we have, here we have a cone, and this is the plane which is cutting the cone, and when this is cut, there are 2 points, there are 2 parts formed. The first one is the smaller cone, and the second one we obtain is called as the frustum of the cone. Observe the diagram carefully. There are 2 spherical surfaces above and below, therefore there will be 2 radii. Okay. Now, where have you seen this type of geometric structure in your daily life or day to day life? The frustum of a cone can be geometrically represented in this form. As I told you, in many cases we write it as small r and capital R, and also there are situations wherein we write R1 and R2. This is H and this is L. Okay. In both the cases it is done. Now, when we talk about the examples of a frustum of a cone, the very simple example that we get into our mind is the water glass. or the glass with which we drink water or you drink milk in your schools. Right, children? Can you think of another example? Yes, it's a bucket. A bucket where we use it to store water. The other example for this is the lamp shade. Particularly for the night lamp, we use this lamp shade. These are few of the examples for the frustum of a cone. Why do we need these examples in a very particular way is a question can be framed in your question paper indicating the examples that we have discussed here, like a frustum of a cone in the shape of a water glass, or a bucket in the shape of a frustum of cone, or a lamp shade in the form of a frustum of cone. So, when you get the catchwords like this, you can immediately jump to the solid as frustum of cone. This will help you in understanding the question in a better way and find the answer in a quick way. Okay. Now, what are all the formulae that are connected with the frustum of a cone? As you can easily see, this is the frustum of a cone. As I told you, the radii can be marked as small r and capital R, or R1 and R2. The curved surface area of the frustum of a cone is given by pi times R1 plus R2 L, and the total surface area is pi R1 square plus pi R2 square plus pi times R1 plus R2 times L, and the volume of this is also given here, 1 by 3 pi times R1 square plus R2 square plus R1 R2 times H. So, since you are studying the frustum of a cone in only 10th standard, you need to remember these formulae. Out of these three formulae, you may expect any one question based on this formulae to appear in your MCQ or in 1 mark question category. So, be prepared for expecting the question from these three formulae, right? Okay. Now, let us shift our focus from the concept knowledge to the area where we are going to actually use it. Okay. Now, what are the things that we have already studied is this: the solids and the combination of solids, which is very important, and the conversion of solids, converting one solid into another and combining two or more solids to obtain a bigger solid. This is the prime focus area for the 10th standard syllabus. Now, let us try to understand what is this combination of solids with few examples. We call them as combined solids. As you can see here, this is a combined solid here, which is made up of one hemisphere at one end, okay, one hemisphere at one end, and then a cylinder, and then a hemisphere. So, totally there are two hemispheres and a cylinder. When integrated together, we are getting a combined solid. Look at another example. Here, the individual solids are cylinder and the cone, and the combined solid is this. Look at another example. Again, in these examples, there are three constituent solids which are put together or which are integrated together to obtain a big solid, and there is a cone here, there is a cylinder here, and there is a hemisphere here. Okay. Now, the question is, when you are given a solid, combined solid like this, the first ever thing that you need to do is to separate the solid and write down the attributes. Only then you will be able to find the solution for the given problem. Okay. Now let us switch our gear to the problem solving techniques. The very first question that we have for our discussion is an MCQ. The ratio of volumes of two spheres is 64:27. Then the ratio of their surface areas will be 2:3, 64:27, 4:3 or 16:9. Be careful children, be careful about the MCQs, because there will be only one correct answer and 3 wrong answers which will distract you from finding the correct answer, right. Now let us try to analyze the question and try to solve this question. It has been given that these are the volumes of the spheres. Since there are two spheres, we name it as V1 and V2, and we name it as R1 and R2 as the radii. So V1 by V2 is equal to 4 by 3 pi R1 cube divided by 4 by 3 pi R2 cube. Here 4 by 3 pi and 4 by 3 pi, since these two are constant, they get cancelled, and leaving only R1 cube and R2 cube, which can be equated to 64/27. Then when you take up the cube roots of R1 by R2, which is nothing but cube root of 64/27, which eventually give the answer 4/3. Okay. The students will be in a hurry to answer the question, particularly when they find the part of the answer, like they have got it as 4/3 and eventually they rush to the answer and mark C 4:3 as the answer. Be careful about this children, because you have not been asked to find the ratio of the radii, rather you have been asked to find the ratio of their surface areas, which should enable you to go for further formula, like formula for the surface areas, which is 4 pi r square. Since there are two spheres here, I have taken it as 4 pi r1 square, r2 square, and ultimately what you get it is 16/9. So the answer is D, 16/9 or 16:9. So dear children, be careful about the steps of the answers. Don't jump to the conclusion and lose your marks, because this is a 1 mark category question in which either you get 1 or 0, right. Okay. Now let us take up another question wherein two solids are joined together to make a combined solid. Two cubes each of volume 64 centimeter cube are joined end to end. Find the surface area of the resulting cuboid. Okay, to make this question easier, they have written it as resulting cuboid. Had it been given as resulting solid, then this question would have been in the higher level category. Okay. Now since cuboid has already been given, let us try to draw two diagrams wherein one is the cube and the other one is the cuboid. Okay. The attribute of a cube, volume, is given. So using the formula, we can actually find the side of a cube, which turns to be 4 centimeter in this case. So when A is 4 centimeter, as you can see here, the length is 4 centimeter, the breadth is 4 centimeter, and the height is 4 plus 4, which is 8 centimeter. So we can label them as L is equal to 4 centimeter, B is equal to 4 centimeter, and H, which is the height of the cuboid, we get it as 8 centimeter. And the total surface area of this cuboid is given by this formula. TSCI is equal to 2LB plus 2BH plus 2LH. Now substitute the values of L, B and H, simplify them and add them, and ultimately you get 160 centimeter square, which is the surface area of this resultant or the resulting cuboid. Okay. Two things you need to remember is what is given and what is got as a resultant, and this resultant solid, the formula connected with resultant solid is to be used. Okay. When you take care of these two instructions in a clear way, no doubt every child can come up with clear answer. Now, let us shift our focus to next problem, wherein a solid is in the shape of a cone standing on a hemisphere with both the radii being equal to 1 centimeter and height of the cone is equal to its radius. Find the volume of solid in terms of pi. See the question here, and literally the students never attempt this type of problem just because they never end up with the integers. They have a fear of fractions and they do fear for decimals also. Many students are of that kind, but this should not happen because at least they are also numbers, right? Now, this question is a very simple one just because you are finding the answer in terms of pi. In terms of pi, you will be keeping the answer as you can mark here. Okay. Now, let us try to understand the diagram with respect to the problem. There should be one-to-one connection with the problem sentence and the diagram, otherwise you will be losing your marks. A solid in the shape of a cone standing on a hemisphere. As you can see, here is a hemisphere and this is the cone. A cone and a hemisphere put together is making this solid, right? And in making so, you have to observe one fact, that the radii should sync with both, otherwise it results in a different solid altogether. That is why the radii is given it as 1 centimeter unanimously. So, you can note down r is equal to 1 centimeter and at the same time h is equal to 1 centimeter. The next question that comes to our mind is, what is that we need to find here? We need to find the volume of this solid. The volume of this solid is nothing but the volume of the individual solids put together will give you the volume of the solid. This is volume of the solid, which is nothing but volume of hemisphere plus volume of the cone, right? Now, recall the formulae of volumes of hemisphere and volume of cone, which eventually turns to be 2 by 3 pi r cube and pi r square h by 3, right? And substitute the value of r. Dear children, please note one more point here. In the problems which has the pi, the value of pi will be given either 3.14 or 22 by 7 as the case may be, and you need to use that particular value only in the substitution. Since the question is asked to keep the answer in terms of pi, we do not have that headache to replace pi. Let the pi be as it is. Now, let us simplify the other parts. It is 2 by 3 pi and 1 by 3 pi when added together will give you the answer pi. Okay. When the pi value is given it as 3.14 or 22 by 7, you should substitute the value of pi and find the answer accordingly. All right. Now, let us move on to another problem. A metallic sphere of radius 4.2 centimeter is melted and recast into the shape of a cylinder of radius 6 centimeter. Find the height of the cylinder. Dear children, while noting this type of questions, I advise you to write down the question in every alternate line, because when you read the question for the second time, you can mark few parts in a different case and your answer will be easy. Like I have marked sphere and cylinder here. So I am converting a sphere into a cylinder in this case. In the second part, what I do is I just scratch out radius 4.2 centimeter, I rate it as R1 is equal to 4.2 centimeter. Similarly, radius 6 centimeters can be scratched out and it can be written as R2 is equal to 6 centimeter. So when you write the given statement in this way, it will be very sure to use the values, because you will be going through the question again and again and you will be marking what is to be found out and what is given, right. In this case, what is to be found out? Yes, the height of the cylinder is to be found out. You can write it either h is equal to question mark in this case, right. H is equal to what? See here, h is equal to what I have written. Now let us try to find the answer. What is being done here? A sphere is being converted into a cylinder. So what happens when a cylinder is converted into a cylinder? Yes, surface area changes, total surface area or the curved surface area changes, radius changes, height may change, but ultimately what remains constant in both the cases? It is the volume that remains constant. So to understand this in a clear way, let us try to imagine a clay which I made it in the form of a sphere and I remake them the same clay in the form of a cylinder without losing even a small amount of clay, right. The amount of clay which we call mathematically as the volume will remain constant. So this is the prime focus area where when you have a conversion problem, make sure that you equate the volumes, that is volume of sphere is equal to volume of cylinder. Volume of sphere 4 by 3 pi r cube is equal to volume of cylinder, which is equal to pi r square h. Now substitute the attributes of cylinder and the attributes of sphere separately. The biggest advantage of conversion problem is that the pi values and the other constants get cancelled. Okay, it is a good news for the students because they never end up with the pi values and there is a little bit of probability that they end up with some fractions. Okay. So when we cancel it out, we end up with the equation like this. Then when you are given a formula, you should be able to write the formula in different forms by changing their subjects. Here I will be changing the subject as h and I will write the formula as this, and on simplifying this I will be getting h as 2.744 centimeter. So few things to note from this problem is, write the problem carefully, note down the values, what are all the solids given in the problem are to be marked and the formula connected with the solids are to be written down. Okay. Now let us go for a problem which is a typical 5 marks problem. At the end of the question paper, that is the 38th question, will be a 5 mark question for your exam, and the 5 mark question will be of this type. A container opened from the top and made up of metal sheet is in the form of a frustum of a cone of height 16 centimeter with radii of its lower and upper ends as 8 centimeter and 20 centimeter respectively. Find the cost of the milk which can completely fill the container at the rate of rupees 20 per liter Also find the cost of the metal sheet used to make the container. It costs rupees 8 per 100 centimeter cube. Now let us rewrite the question or mark the prime areas in the question, like this is a question pertaining to the solid frustum of a cone. The height of the cone is given, the radii are given as 8 and 20 centimeter, as you can mark it here, and ultimately there are two amounts, rupees 20 and rupees 8. These are the prime areas you should mark in the question. I suggest you children, you can mark this in your question paper itself with a pencil, and then you can write the answers in your books. Now, to understand this in a better way, let us try to have the diagram here. This is a cone, this is a frustum of cone, and the answer for this question can be done in different steps that I have done it here. The very first and the foremost important aspect is to note down the data, which is R1 is equal to 20, R2 is equal to 8 and H is equal to 16 centimeter. Alright. So, once the diagram is written and the data is written, let us move on to the formulae. What is to be done here? We need to find the surface area. So, in order to find the surface area, we need to find the lateral surface area of the frustum. In the lateral surface area, we have the mention of L, which is the slant height of the frustum. The very first thing that we are going to do is to find the lateral height, which is L is equal to root h square plus r1 minus r2 whole square, and upon simplification we get h is equal to 20 centimeter. Dear children, please make a note of intermediate results that you get in solving the problems. That is why I have made it as highlighted as 20 centimeter. The second step is to find the lateral surface area of the frustum or the curved surface area of the frustum, which is pi times r1 plus r2 into L, and upon substitution on simplifying we get 1758.4 centimeter square as the curved surface area. And remember that this curved surface area constitute only the surrounding area. What about the area of the base? Even this need to be considered while finding the surface area that we require to make the given frustum, right? So, the total surface area in this case is curved surface area plus area of the base. Agreed? Okay. Substitute the values and finally you get 1959.36 centimeter square as the total surface area of this frustum, which is opened at the top. Okay. Now, the next question is to find the rate of the sheet. Now, material required, it is also given, the rate is 8 rupees per 100 centimeter square, and ultimately the amount that is required to make this frustum of cone is, it is given here, it is 156.75. This is one part of the problem. The other part is to find the amount of the milk required. See, volume of the frustum is to be considered in order to find the amount. Okay. The volume of the frustum is given by 1 by 3 pi h times r1 square plus r2 square plus r1 r2. On simplification, when you substitute it and simplify it, you get it as 10,459.43 centimeter cube, and in the standard way we keep the volume in liters, right. Now, let us convert this centimeter cube into liters by dividing this by 1000, which we get it as 10.46 liters, and it is also said that 1 liter is 20 rupees. Therefore, 10.46 liters will cost us 10.46 into 20, which is nothing but 209.20. Dear children, let us try to connect few formula and try to understand the way in which we can remember the formula. One such formula is here. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 and pi r square here. So, how to connect all these 1, 2, 3, 4 pi r square with the formula that we have already studied? Now, just recall, what does 1 pi r square refer to? Yes, 1 pi r square refers to the area of the circle. 2 pi r square refers to the curved surface area of a hemisphere. 3 pi r square refers to total surface area of the hemisphere, and ultimately 4 pi r square refers to total surface area of a sphere. So, this is one of the ways in which we can make the formula easier. Do you have any trick like this? If not, try to have one. I hope you have enjoyed this session on the solids, the surface area and the volume. I hope that you work in a better way to achieve more and more marks and laurels in your life. Thank you very much and have a good day.
Hi, hello, namaste. I am Ramchandra Bhatt. Welcome to the revision class. I am working as a science teacher at Government High School, Batrayanpura, Mysore Road, Bangalore. You are eagerly waiting for science classes. In this session, you are going to learn about very important chapter, very small chapter, but it is the basis of entire chemistry, that is periodic classification of elements. The learning points are: the first point, Dobrynin's triad, Newland's law of octave or Newland's octave, Mendeleev's periodic table, merits and demerits of Mendeleev's periodic table, modern periodic table, then periodic trends. Now, let us understand these points in detail. So, why do we need classification? Are you following the classification? You are unaware of this one, but you are following the classification in your daily life. For example, you are having different notebooks for different subjects, right? Just imagine you are writing all the subjects in a single notebook. Imagine what is the fate of you before the test or exam. Highly difficult to understand which subject written where, whether it is social, science, etc., etc. It is the wastage of the time once again. You got into the pool of confusion. So, that is why you are keeping a separate notebook for different subjects. Now, I think you understood the importance of classification. Similarly, in the science, we are also using the classification. Why we are classifying? Once again, see here the fruits are given. Depends on our interest, mode of study, we classify the things. For a lemon, it may be a sweet fruit, sour fruit, that type of classification. For a biologist, something else. That is, he may classify them into berries, a type of fruit, pods, another type of fruit, nuts, another type of fruit, and so on. So, depends on our requirement, we classify the things so that the study becomes very easy. Now, what is the need of classification in chemistry? As the different elements were being discovered, scientists gathered more and more information about the properties of these elements. They found it difficult to organize these elements. They started looking for some pattern in their properties so that they can classify elements very easily and study them very easily. If you are studying a compound, if you are studying an element, you are studying for particular purpose, how it is useful for us, what is the advantage of this element or compound, and so on. That is why the classification is very essential. Now, the arrangement of elements into different groups on the basis of similarities and on their properties is called classification of element. The classification of similar elements into group make the study of elements easier. You need not study each and every element. Just one element present in that group represents entire group. That's why we group the elements into different columns and rows. There are about 118 different elements known to us. Out of that one, 94 are naturally occurring and 24 are artificially synthesized. There are different criteria for the classification. Since time immemorial, the scientists started to classify the elements. Earlier classification was just like solid, liquid, gas, and then metals and non-metals. So, this type of classification is not apt because, for example, let us consider two elements, that is Au and Na, gold and sodium. Both are metals, but lot of difference in their properties. If you add sodium to water, it reacts vigorously, but gold, no effect, nothing. Similarly, mercury, one more element, liquid, metal. So, lot of difference even though they are metals. So, this criteria is not apt. Let us consider one more, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen. These are also even the non-metals, all are gases, they have different set of properties. Hydrogen is highly reactive non-metal, nitrogen is very cool customer. It is about 78% in the atmosphere, so it is highly inert. That is why this criteria also a not good criteria. Then Dobereiner. So, Dobereiner classified the elements into increasing out of their atomic masses into triads, that is the group of three elements called triads. William Prout suggested you can use atomic mass as a criteria, then onwards people started to use that criteria as the basis for their classification. Now, let us see what are the salient features of this one. So, in each triad, the atomic mass of the middle element was approximately equal to the average atomic masses of other two elements. This is the simple statement given by or observation of Dobereiner. Now, consider A, B, C, three elements constituting Dobereiner's triad. Then the formula, according to Dobereiner's law, we can calculate the atomic mass of the middle element by using this formula, very simple. B is equal to A plus C by 2. This is the simple formula. So, you can make out A is equal to 2B minus C. Similarly, C is equal to 2B minus A. These are the different methods to calculate what is the mass of given element in a triad. Now, Dobereiner's triad can be seen here: lithium, sodium, potassium. See the highlighted areas, then calcium, strontium, barium, then phosphorus, arsenic, antimony, chlorine, bromine, iodine. Here 4 sets are given. So, let us check how the Dobereiner's triad works. Lithium, atomic mass is 7, sodium 23, potassium 39, then the average mass can be calculated like this: 7 plus 39, average of first and third, divided by 2 is equal to 23, which is approximately equal to the middle one, means correct, it is a triad. Now, calcium, strontium, barium, let us calculate the mass. So, 40 plus 137 divided by 2 is equal to 88.5. It is approximately equal to the middle element strontium, whose mass is 87. The drawbacks are, the classification was that all the then element known to us could not follow this arrangement into triads. So, it failed. only a few triads are possible. Then comes Newland. Here is the picture of the Newland. John Newlands, an English scientist, arranged the then known elements in the order of increasing atomic masses. Once again, Dobereiner and Newlands also followed same criteria, that is the atomic mass. Now let us see. Then he found the eighth element. Every eighth element had the properties similar to that of the first one. Wherever you start, from there the eighth element will resemble the first one. So Newland found that every eighth element had the properties similar to that of the first one. So he compared this to the octaves found in the music, that is the musical note. Therefore he called it as law of octave. Here is the extract of Newland's octaves. The musical notes sa, re, ga, ma, pa, da, ni, once again sa repeats. Then Greek musical notes do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, once again repeating. Let us consider hydrogen, that is the first element. If you start from there, the eighth will be fluorine. Both are non-metals, have the tendency to accept the electron and become a negatively charged ion, hydride, fluoride, chloride. So that is the similarity. Then the law was applicable up to calcium only. This is the major drawback, also called as limitation. He was assumed that only 56 elements were existed in the nature and no more elements would be discovered in the future. That was one more important limitation of his classification. But later on, several new elements were discovered whose properties did not fit into law of octave. That also one more drawback of Newland's classification. In order to fit the elements into the table, Newland adjusted two elements in the same slot and also put some unlike elements under the same note. This is one more limitation of Newland's classification. For example, cobalt, nickel, they are the metals, but they are kept in the slot of fluorine and chlorine, bromine, which are having different set of properties compared to halogen, fluorine, chlorine, bromine. So cobalt and nickel are metals, others are non-metals. Obviously, lot of difference in their chemical properties. That also one of the drawbacks. Many scientists sacrificed entire life, they devoted entire life for the chemistry, that is the classification science. Now the next one, very important, Mendeleev, Dmitry Ivanovich Mendeleev. The main credit for the classifying the elements goes to this great scientist, school teacher, Dmitry Ivanovich Mendeleev. His periodic classification also based on atomic mass. That is a major drawback. Let us see what he states. He stated that the properties of the elements are periodic functions of their atomic masses. Then here is some important features of periodic table displayed. Observe some vacant spaces. See, they are filled. Scandium, gallium, germanium, these are the elements discovered later. Fortunately, all the elements were discovered in his lifetime only and he enjoyed the success. Elements were classified on a more fundamental basis of their atomic masses and their properties. The spaces were left vacant to accommodate the elements to be discovered in the future. It could be predicted properties of the elements which helped in the discovery of new elements. The inert gases, these elements were discovered later that could be placed in a separate group without disturbing the periodic table. That is the beauty of his periodic table. Now, examples, Eka boron already shown, that is scandium, Aka aluminium, gallium, Aka silicon, germanium. Now, Aka aluminium, atomic mass 68, formula of the oxide E2O3 and formula of the chloride ECl3. What happened after the discovery of the gallium? Mass 69.7. Then you are seeing the formula of the oxide Ga2O3 and then formula of the chloride also GaCl3. Thus, what he predicted found more accurate compared to others' classification. That is the beauty. Some elements are not able to arrange in the increasing order of their atomic masses. It is the defect or drawback of Mendeleev's periodic table. Let us see, cobalt is placed before nickel. Similarly, tellurium placed before iodine. Such anomalies were found in the periodic table of Mendeleev. Here are the elements marked with the red. So, cobalt and nickel you are seeing here. Cobalt, nickel, observe the atomic masses. Which one is having higher? Right. So, nickel should come first, followed by cobalt. Similarly, here comes the iodine and tellurium. So, iodine should be kept before tellurium. This is once again anomaly. Now, cobalt nickel 58.93, nickel 58.71. Already you know. This is how the anomalies are observed. Observe the tellurium 127.60, iodine 126.90. So, he could not justify why the classification is like that. But what he did was correct, but the reason was unable to give the reason. So, that is why it is called as a drawback of Mendeleev's classification. Once again, one more defect or drawback was position of hydrogen is not justified because it resembles like halogen as well as group 1 elements. The position of isotopes also once again not clear because they discovered later. Now comes the modern periodic table. The pioneer scientist who gave the basis for modern periodic table is none other than Henry Moseley, army doctor. At the young age he died. So, wonderful great scientist who contributed. Henry Moseley, an English physicist, gave a new property of the elements, that is the atomic number, as a criteria, and that is the basis of our modern periodic table. Now, let us see this modern periodic table in detail. Accordingly, Mendeleev's periodic law was modified and atomic number was introduced. In the place of atomic mass, atomic number is taken. So, that is the small slight change in the modern periodic law. It states that the properties of the elements are the periodic functions of their atomic number. Now, let us see, here is the periodic table. You are seeing 118 elements in this periodic table. The various criteria used are once again atomic number already stated. The second one is electronic configuration. Based on the electronic configuration, we have different type of blocks in the periodic table. Later on, let us see how to read and understand the periodic table. Here is helium. On the top you are seeing 2, that is the atomic number or number of protons. He, symbol of the element, 4.003, that is the mass of helium. Thus, you can understand many statistics while seeing the periodic table. The electronic configuration is the basis of the periodic table, just now told. Now, you are seeing here, see S block, D block, P block and F block elements. First one, blue colored one, bluish purple colored one is nothing but S block elements. In the middle, the greenish one represents D block elements, and extreme right side here you are seeing P block elements. At the bottom, sky blue color or navy blue, what you call. So this is F block elements. Thus we have 4 blocks. That means atomic number and electronic configuration, they are interrelated and they are the basis of modern periodic classification. Now modern periodic table consists of 18 groups and 7 periods. Why 18? If you know SPD, you will understand. S can accommodate, S, these are the subshells present in the atom. S subshell can accommodate 2 electron, so 2, plus D can accommodate 10, so 10 plus 2, 12. Then P can accommodate 6, 12 plus 6, 18. So that is the reason why 18 groups are there. Then 7 periods. Atomic shell, atoms has maximum 7 shell, K, L, M, N and so on. That is why 7 periods corresponds to each shell is there. The vertical columns are the groups and horizontal rows are called periods. 7 periods, 18 groups. Element present in any one group have the same number of valence electron. Children, understand this one. If you see the periodic table, any group, so valence electrons are same. So that is the important feature of this one. Also number of shells increases as you go down in the group. Then elements present in any one period contain same number of shell. So shell number and period number is same. That's why 7 shells, what I told just now. Now let us see some more important features. Also with the increase in the atomic number by 1 unit on moving from left to right, the valence shell electron increases by 1 unit. So that also one of the important feature here. Then each period marks a new electronic shell getting filled. That also one of the important feature. Now there are 7 periods of the element. First period has 2 elements, hydrogen and helium. That is the shortest period in the periodic table. That is the first one. The second period has 8 elements. Second shell can accommodate 8 electrons. You can correlate. The element starts from lithium, ends with the neon. That is the noble gas. The third period also having 8 elements, that is sodium up to argon, Na to Ar. Next one, the fourth period having 18 elements, so it is the one of the long period present in the periodic table with 18 elements. Now let us see the next one, that is fifth period has 18 elements, rubidium to xenon. That is the 54th element. Next sixth period has 32 elements, starts from cesium to radon. The seventh period has 32 elements from francium to atomic number 118 called incomplete period. The 14 elements, each of the sixth and seventh period are kept separately at the bottom of the periodic table because these elements are not following periodic properties vertically in the group, but they follow horizontal similarity. That is the reason why they kept separately. The 14 elements in the sixth period, that is lanthanum to lutetium, are kept at the bottom, are called as lanthanides. Then the 14 element in the seventh period from actinium to after the actinium to lawrencium are called as actinides. They also kept separately in the different groups. See here the extract of the periodic table, atomic number 57. Actually lanthanum is not belonging to this one, but the name lanthanides, that's why it is kept here. So after the lanthanum 14 element you are seeing here. Similarly actinium to 14 elements, they kept separately in the periodic table. So actinides and lanthanides, they are 7th and 6th period elements respectively. Now let us move on to the next one. There are 18 groups. Group 1 elements, they are the alkali metals because they form water soluble bases when they dissolve in water, hence they are called as alkali metals. Then group 2 elements are called alkaline earth metals. Group 17 elements are called halogens. Group 18 are called as zero group elements or noble gases. Like this, we have different common names also there for these. Now, in a group, all the elements have the same number of valence electron. Remember children, this is very, very important to understand the chemistry, to write the formula, etc. Group 1 elements have 1 valence electron, group 2 elements have 2 valence electrons, group 3 are having. Group 3 in the modern periodic table means 13th group element. So, they are having 3 valence electrons. Similarly, in a period, all the elements contain same number of shells. This is also very, very important because to trace the position of element, we need this knowledge. Third period element means this element should have only 3 shells. That is how they are related to each other. So, classification and atomic number and the electronic configuration, they are interrelated. Now, here is the valency chart. You are seeing the valency of different elements. Children, remember this one, and also simple mnemonics I am telling. So, you should by heart up to 20 elements. If you know the knowledge of these 20 elements, thorough knowledge, obviously you will score very easily in first, second, third, fourth and fifth chapter of chemistry. See here, first group +1 I wrote on the top. Next one you are seeing the 2 here, next one is 2. So, that is the +2 means these are electropositive elements, have the tendency to lose the electron. Next one you are seeing here, that is the +3. So, you are seeing here +3, that is the boron and aluminum. Next comes carbon and silicon, that is the 4. +3 means these are having the tendency to lose the 3 electron and become electropositive. So, valency 3. Next one, valency 4. Next one is valency -3 means they have the tendency to accept the electron and become, they are negatively charged. Here nitrogen and phosphorus you are seeing. Next one is -2, that is oxygen and sulfur, -2. Then comes, that is the -1, 17th group, fluorine, chlorine. Then comes zero group elements, they are the noble gases. Now, let us remember the elements with the simple mnemonics: HHE, hydrogen helium, Liebe-Becknoff ne, Lib, Liebe, Beck, Noff ne. So, next 8 elements: Na, Meg, Alsi, Pascal, R, K, Ka. So, these are the 20 elements. You can utter this one within 2 to 3 seconds. Thus, you can remember 20 elements in that order. For example, one more question. If the group number 17, that is I wrote -1 on the top, let us say chlorine, combines with the +2, that is the second group element magnesium. What is the formula of this compound? You know the valencies, do the crisscross, you studied that one last year. So, the formula will be MgCl2. That is the importance of periodic table. If you understand this one, you will score very easily. Now, the valency of an element is determined by the number of valence electron present in the outermost shell of this atom. So, number of electrons present in atomic shell is 7, means it has the tendency to accept 1 electron to attain the octet and becomes -1, that is the valency. Here are the elements with their valencies. Lithium, valence electron 1, valency 1, because it cannot take 7, it loses 1 electron very easily. Beryllium 2, to attain the octet 6 more required, cannot take 6, but loses 2 very easily. So, +2 valency. Boron, 3 electrons in the valence shell, to attain 5 more required. So, it won't take, it will lose 3 easily. Then carbon, Already in the carbanion compound chapter you studied carbon neither loses nor gains the electron because both are very difficult, wonderful element, shares the electron, tells us how to live in the society, share and care for everyone, wonderful element. Already you studied in carbanion compounds. Now the next one, nitrogen, that is having 5 valence electrons, its valence is 3, that means 3 more required or it has to lose 5. Losing 5 is impossible, so it takes 3 very easily, that is why its valency is -3, means electronegative. Oxygen, 6 electrons are there, it will take 2 electrons to attain the octet. Fluorine, 7 electrons are there in the valence shell, its valency is 1, it takes 1 electron, where neon, 8 electrons, octet already achieved. Do you think it accepts the electron or loses? No, already completely filled shell, so requirement is 0, that is why we call that one as a 0 group element and its valence is 0. This is belonging to second period. Now, let us see the element belonging to group 1, that is the hydrogen, lithium, sodium, potassium and so on. Here 4 elements are given. Hydrogen, its atomic number is 1. What is the electronic configuration or electronic distribution? K shell, 1 electron. How many valence electrons are there? 1. What is the valency? 1. Now lithium, atomic number 3, the electronic distribution will be 2, 1. That means valence shell has 1 electron, so its valency is 1. Similarly sodium, atomic number 11, so its configuration is 2, 8, 1. So valence shell has 1, so valency also 1. Potassium, 19, atomic number 2, 8, 8, 1. This is the configuration. Valence electrons are having 1 and valency 1. What is the inference after studying this one? Down the group, valence electrons are same and valency also same. This is what you are understanding by studying this small table. In a group, the valency is the same for all the elements. So, for example, group 1 is given here. Let us move on to the next one, that is atomic size. What is that? See here. So, what you are seeing? So, it shows some distance from the center to periphery, that is nothing but atomic size. Atomic size can be measured with the help of atomic radius. The entire sphere's volume can be calculated by using the formula 4 by 3 pi r cube, that is the formula you studied in mathematics. Now we are using the same thing here. Radius increases means obviously size increases. Size refers here radius of an atom. The atomic size may be visualized as the distance between the center of the nucleus to the outermost shell of an isolated atom. This atomic size also varies in group and period. Let us see how. Across the period, as you move from left to right, atomic size decreases. Why? Because electrons are added to the same shell. The nucleus holds these electrons more and more. Across the period from left to right, atomic size decreases because the electrons are added to the same shell, and nuclear attraction increases as you move from left to right. Then valence electrons are strongly pulled by the nucleus as you move from left to right. That is the reason why size decreases as you move from left to right. Then what happens to down the group? Down the group, atomic size increases because a new shell is added. Due to the addition of new shell, obviously size increases. Observe this pictorial representation of atomic sizes. Here you are seeing down the group, the balls, the spherical structures are becoming bigger and bigger, indicating size increases. Across the period, size decreases. So, already I told the reason. Now, let us move on to next slide. So, this is the trend once again in the atomic radius with some values are given. Observe these values carefully and try to understand the concept across the period down the group how the atomic radius varies. Now, next property is metallic property, also known as electropositive. What are the metals? Metals have the tendency to lose the electron and become positively charged cations. They have the tendency to lose the electron. Electrons are lost, means that is the electropositive nature. After that they become positively charged cations. So, positive, electropositive. Electropositivity is nothing but metallic property. All metals donate their outermost electrons during chemical reaction and become electropositive. Now, let us see how it changes. In a period, the metallic property of the element decreases from left to right. For example, in the third period you are seeing sodium, magnesium, aluminum, silicon, phosphorus, sulfur, chlorine and argon. So, sodium and magnesium, aluminum, they are the metals, already you are familiar with this one. Silicon having the property of both metals and non-metals, so metalloid. Then sulfur, phosphorus, chlorine and argon, they are the non-metals. What do you mean by this? Metallic property decreases as you move from left to right. Here is the chart, pictorial representation of electropositivity of the metals. So, as you move from left to right, metallic property decreases, other way non-metallic property increases. In a group, that is, you are seeing how it varies. Let us consider group 14, that is the carbon family. Down the group you are seeing the metallic property increases. For example, in the 14 group the elements are carbon, just below that one silicon, germanium, tin, lead. What is the property? Carbon and silicon. Carbon is a non-metal, silicon, germanium are metalloid, then tin and lead are perfectly metals. Lead metal. That means metallic property increases down the group. That also evident from this example. So, this is what represented with the help of the chart. Some elements tend to gain the electron while forming the bonds, that is, they are electronegative in the nature. All the non-metal except hydrogen, they receive the electron during the chemical reaction and become electronegative. That tendency to accept the electron is termed as electronegative nature. Non-metals are electronegative, metals are electropositive. Now, observe this one. In the period, the non-metallic property of the element increases as you move from left to right. See here, sodium, magnesium, metals, while chlorine, sulfur, non-metals. What happened? That means, as you move from left to right, non-metallic property increases. It is evident from this. So, you will easily understand. Observe here. So, lithium, beryllium, lithium is a metal, when it comes to fluorine, non-metal. So, that is how you will understand these concepts by seeing the periodic table, and also you have to visualize this. Now, in a group, non-metallic property of the element decreases from the top to bottom. Let us take the same example. Carbon, non-metal, when come to lead, metal. That means, down the group non-metallic character decreases. The opposite of this statement is metallic character increases. If you learn one, you will learn another one very easily. When we say one increases, obviously other way another one decreases. So, this can be understood by observing the periodic table. Across the period, the electronegativity that increases. Electronegativity means tendency of an atom to pull shared pair of electron more towards itself when it forms a bond. In the covalent bond situation, one of the atom pulls means that is more electronegative, which try to lose the electron is electropositive. Already you understood this one. Now various trends are there, that is atomic size down the group increases, electronegativity as you go down decreases, electropositivity increases, then ionization energy as you go down also decreases. What do you mean by ionization energy? Ionization means converting an atom into ion. How? By pulling an electron from the valence shell. To pull the electron, we have to supply the energy. That means amount of energy required to remove an electron from valence shell is termed as ionization energy. That across the period increases, down the group decreases. Why? As you go down, size of the atom increases, the electrons are, valence shell electrons are far away from the nucleus, then less amount of energy is sufficient to remove from the valence shell. If they are closer, then more energy is required. This is the simple logic. Now see here, trends. Atomic size across the period from left to right decreases, down the group increases. Electropositivity across the period decreases, down the group increases. Electronegativity across the period increases, down the group decreases. Metallic nature across the period decreases, down the group increases. Non-metallic nature across the period increases, down the group decreases. Already we learnt all these things with the suitable examples. Remember one, opposite will be easy to understand. So try to understand this table. This will help in the exam. Obviously many questions are possible. We call them as application level or higher order thinking questions. Some important questions. So might be helpful in the examination. The state the Dobereiner-Slope triads, Newland's law of octave, Mendeleev's periodic law and modern periodic law. You have to practice this one. Next one, observe the periodic table given below and identify any three pairs of Dobereiner's triad. Already I told 4 such triads. Now it is your turn to identify which are Dobereiner's triad. Next one, 3 elements X, Y, Z belongs to 17th group, but they belongs to 2nd, 3rd and 4th period respectively. Number of valence electrons in the Y is 7. Find the number of valence electrons in X and Z. Already the hint is given, 17th group means down the group valency and valence electron both remain same. So find the atomic number of these X and Y also you can easily identify. Already I told up to 20 elements you should remember. So formula also given to you. Now next one, atomic number of elements A, B, C, D, E are given. So element A, B, C, D, E, atomic number 7, 10, 12, 4 and 19. Which two elements are chemically similar? Which is an inert gas? Which element belongs to 3rd period of the periodic table? Which element among these is a non-metal? How to answer to this one? Let us analyze. Which two elements are chemically similar? Chemically similar means they should belonging to same group. First you have to write electronic configuration. A 7, 2, 5, valence electrons 5. Next one 10, 2, 8, noble gas. C 12, 2, 8, 2, some magnesium. So D 4, 2, 2, so that is the beryllium metal. 2, 2, valence electrons 2, Mg also having the 2 electrons. So these are chemically similar. Now let us say E 2, 8, 8, 1, so potassium. So there is a resemblance between magnesium 12 C, D 4 beryllium. In the examination you should not write magnesium, aluminum, etc. You have to write A, B, C, D if it is given in the question. Which is an inert gas? Already I told 10, B, 2, 8 completely filled shell, that is the B. Next one, which element belongs to third period of the periodic table? So, very easily 282. So, that is the C. Third period means should contain 3 shell K, L, M 282. So, that is the C. Next one, which element among these is a non-metal? So, A 25, the elements which are having the electrons in their valence shell more than 4 and more than that are non-metals. If you see the electronic configuration, you will understand this one. A is a non-metal, B noble gas, C a metal, D a metal, E also a metal. Thus you can identify which one is the non-metal. So, A is the non-metal, so B is the noble gas, remaining are the metals. Now, let us move on to next one. Now, how does the tendency of the element to lose the electrons change in the modern periodic table in a group and a period? And you should give the reason. Already I explained this one. Arrange the following elements in the decreasing order of their atomic size and give the reason for your answer. Magnesium, chlorine, phosphorus. Atomic number of these elements are 12, 17 and 15 respectively. So, you have to arrange them in the decreasing order of their atomic size. So, very easily, first you have to write the electronic configuration, so that you will identify whether they are belonging to same period or not. Same shell number means same period, then you have to identify. So, obviously, these are all belonging to same one. If you arrange them, decreasing order of their atomic size means smaller to bigger atomic number. Arrange them 12, 15, 17. So, first you have to write magnesium, then phosphorus, then chlorine. This is how decreasing order of their atomic size. Descending order, very easy. Similar type of questions you can practice for the examination. Now, in the following table, the position of the 6 elements A, B, C, D, E, F, G are given. 7 elements are given here. So, try to identify the following. Name the element which forms only covalent compound. Only covalent compound, that is already I told carbonane compounds. 14th group means obviously C. Here C is the carbon itself and also symbol of given element. Name the element which is the metal with the valency 3. Already I told valency 3 means it should belonging to 13th group. So, that is the B. Name the element which is non-metal with the valency 3. Non-metal means group 15, nitrogen family. So, obviously that is G. Then out of B and E, whose atomic radius is bigger and why? B is in the 13th and E is in the 17th, you are seeing here. So, out of these two, across the period size decreases. So, B is bigger, E is smaller in its size. Reason, compared to B and E, compared to E, B is having bigger size because the energy of the nucleus in the boron is less compared to E's nucleus. So, nucleus E pulls electrons strongly, size drastically decreases. Now, write the common name for the family to which the elements D and F belonging to. So, D is belong to noble gas, then F is belonging to the same one. So, that is the noble gas family. So, like this you can easily identify the elements with their properties and then what happens across and down the group also. Dear children, till now you studied many things about the periodic table. So, in the examination perspective, these are very, very important. So, these revision classes are very helpful for you if you understand various concepts and follow. I wish you all the best. Thank you for watching. Namaste.
ಭೀತಿ ತೊರೆಯುವ ನಾವು ಪರೀಕ್ಷೆ ಬರೆಯುವ ಪರೀಕ್ಷಾವಾಣಿಯ ನಾವು ನೋಡಿ ಕಲಿಯುವ
ಖಾಲಿ ಜಾಗ ಭರ್ತಿ ಮಾಡಿ ಹೊಂದಿಸಿ ಬರೆದು ಲೆಕ್ಕ ಮಾಡಿ
ಚಿತ್ರ ಬರೆದು ಭಾಗವ ಹೆಸರಿಸಿ ಎಲ್ಲ ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆಗೂ ಉತ್ತರಿಸಿ
ಪಾಸು ಫೇಲು ಗೆಲುವು ಸೋಲು ಜೀವನ ಎಲ್ಲಕ್ಕಿಂತ ಮಿಗಿಲು
ಅಂಕಗಳೆಂದರೆ ಮೇಲಿನ ತೊಗಟೆ ವಿದ್ಯೆ ಅದರ ಒಳಗಿನ ತಿರುಳು ಭೀತಿ ತೊರೆಯುವ ನಾವು ಪರೀಕ್ಷೆ ಬರೆಯುವ ಪರೀಕ್ಷಾವಾಣಿಯ ನಾವು ನೋಡಿ ಕಲಿಯುವ ಪರೀಕ್ಷಾವಾಣಿಯ ನಾವು ನೋಡಿ ಕಲಿಯುವ ಪರೀಕ್ಷಾವಾಣಿಯ ನಾವು ನೋಡಿ ಕಲಿಯುವ
ಪರೀಕ್ಷಾ